Good morning, Samir.
Good morning, Bob.
Samir, could you start by telling us what your subjects are and why you chose them?
Okay, as of right now in my Bachelor of Education program, my teachables are math and science, and I am teaching those in French immersion, so I'm also getting a French teachable. I can teach that as well. The reason why I got into math was I think it was the first subject that I really took to after having come here from Iraq. I came here at a young age, and there's a phenomenon where people who struggle with this particular language take to math very well because it's a very logical language, and you can understand it with having a very basic level of the language in the country which you're in. So I took to math very, very well, and I don't think that physics was a particularly big step forward, even though there's more problem solving and more requirement of language. You could always kind of fall back on the math, so I took to physics very well, and it also I found it to be very enjoyable because it helped me understand and navigate the world a little bit better, and I really do like understanding why things work. With the French, I learned French in my mid-20s. I wanted to prove to myself that you can learn a language later in life, and also I wanted to prove to myself that I could personally learn a language, having forgotten one when I was younger. And biology and chemistry, I've taken so many courses and enjoyed those as well in my undergrad, and just more and more ways to help me navigate the world.
Okay, thank you. And secondly, can you tell us why you decided to become a teacher?
Well, I just turned 30, and I've had probably about 20-30 different jobs in my lifetime, and I found that the jobs that really involved more of a teaching role I did particularly well in. And even going as far back as high school, I was helping my friends try to understand math problems and physics problems. In university, I volunteered with the Physics Help Initiative, and I really did enjoy explaining physics problems to people who are in the first year undergrad. And then that catapulted me into a tutoring position, which helped pay the bills, but it was also pretty fun. And I did that, and then I also tutored for Sylvan. I was a teacher's assistant during my master's. I was a camp counselor in Quebec, teaching French to Anglophones, and that was enjoyable as well because I had to plan my own sort of activities and lessons, and I was always in a teacher role there, and those were by and far the most enjoyable jobs that I had. And I also think that that's probably where I'm most talented, is in teaching.
Okay, thank you. What would your last cooperative teacher say are your strongest attributes as a teacher?
I would say that for sure she would say that I'm very strong in my content knowledge because of my educational background, and I do like learning on the side too. That's one of my hobbies. She would probably say that I'm pretty punctual, that I have a way of explaining things pretty clearly and through many different perspectives. And I think that I typically tend to get along with my coworkers, and I typically tend to get along with my students. Yeah.
Thank you. And what would she say is the one area you perhaps need to work on?
Something that I'm going to be striving for in my next practicum is really working on how to ask people for help. I tried to do the first practicum almost kind of as a bit of a challenge to myself to do the first practicum on my own. She actually, the first 2-week practicum that I had with her, she got cellulitis, so she was gone for a week and she was deathly ill. And then the second 5-week practicum that I had with her, her father died, so she was gone for a week. So I wanted to prove to myself that I could handle a class on my own and things like that, but it ended up being that I could have probably have performed better or with less time invested if I had talked to other people. I find a 5-minute conversation with somebody who really knew what they were doing made a huge difference in the quality of my lesson. And so I think that that's going to be my big objective for the next one, just basically realizing that there are people there who have been teaching for 10-20 years, and they know so much about the material, and they have so much advice to give. They're a resource just like the internet or just like a textbook, but maybe even better.
Okay, thank you. And what other skills can you offer a school, Samir, outside of the classroom?
I'm a very busy person outside of the classroom as well. So I used to be a varsity athlete. I used to wrestle for my university. I have many years of wrestling experience and athletic experience in general. One of my biggest hobbies is yoga. I do yoga 3 or 4 times a week, and I think it's really, really helpful helpful for anyone, but it's especially helpful for people who have a hard time tempering their emotions and who need kind of expend their energy, but in a very in a way that's not so dangerous. I also love learning languages. I speak French, Arabic, and English, and I'm currently learning Spanish. It's pretty fun. It's going pretty well, and I also like reading. So with that sort of thing, I can possibly contribute to a book club. I can possibly contribute to a yoga club, or maybe mindfulness, mental health sort of club, something along those lines. I've been tutoring off and on for must be 8 years now. So a homework club, I would have no problem being able to help out there. There's strong content knowledge in so many different things. And maybe possibly even helping with some sports clubs. I know rugby is pretty popular
Yes.
in the UK, so that's something I wouldn't mind doing as well.
Okay, yeah, I could. You look like you could play rugby. Samir, in a couple of your answers, you've mentioned tutoring, which has been something woven obviously into your life. And I believe that after this interview, you're going to be working late into the evening tutoring various students. That must be tough.
I actually really enjoy it. I almost kind of consider it like a pastime, because I already know the material, but I really do enjoy learning about where people are going to be going and having people seek me out to help them with a particular subject. So, for example, at 1 o'clock, I have a grade 11 student who's taking chemistry course, and she says that I explain things very well, and she likes having the one-on-one time, and she's planning on going to university, doesn't know what yet. And after that, I am going to go see somebody who actually I'm good friends with now, and this person wants to get into the army, and depending on what your mathematical competencies are like, you can be anything from an artillery officer to a pilot in the army. You can be an engineer, all sorts of things. So I find that really neat to know what people's stories are, and to see how they need math in their day-to-day. And after that, I'm going to be seeing a Vietnamese student who's having a hard time dealing with a university course. 2 university courses, one being statistics. He's very good with the math, doesn't understand the concepts, and then he also is taking a theoretical geometry course, which requires a lot of proofs, and he doesn't understand how to do that whatsoever. I have somebody who's in his 50s, and he's retired from being a technician, and he wants to get a degree in statistics. I'm helping him with a 3rd-year statistics course, and he's hoping to work in either machine learning or artificial intelligence. And I just like knowing those stories. That kind of makes life a bit more pleasant for me, anyhow. Yeah.
Yeah, fascinating. Samir, thank you very much.
No problem.